Your man, Louie T. Welcome to the Draft Prospects 101 series, your guide to some of the biggest and hottest names of the 2022 NFL Draft. We're talking quarterbacks, and this next quarterback that we're going to talk about, to me, is the wild card of this quarterback group because I think he's got the potential to be a franchise quarterback, but you're not quite sure. And he's really similar to the guy he's going to be comped to, and I think a lot of people are comping him to the same guy. And this is low-hanging fruit, but it's too appetizing, it's too appealing to pass this low-hanging fruit up because the similarities are eerie between these two players. And that's why I think this guy has a chance to be a really good quarterback in this league, but he also could be pretty marginal. But there's a lot to like with North Carolina junior quarterback Sam Howell. We'll get into why this is a guy that is going to make a push to be a first-round pick, will go no later than in the second round, and has a chance to be a quality NFL starter. Let's take a look at quarterback Sam Howell and what he brings to the table. So, as you see, 6'1", 220, and I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, I don't know if he's 6'1". This is the problem with a lot of these quarterbacks in this year's draft class, is that we really don't know how big these guys truly are. And a lot of them are right around, hovering around 6 feet. And I think Sam Howell is probably in that same category. But look, that's nor here nor there. His size is what it is. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But he's a thick guy at 220, as you can see. And I think he actually lost some weight going into the 2021 season and made him a little bit more spry. And I thought he was able to show off a little bit more athleticism in his final season at Chapel Hill because he dropped a few pounds. So let's jump into Sam Howell. Let's go inside the numbers and see exactly why this guy is such a polarizing name in the 2022 NFL Draft. So we start with his passing statistics, and the first number that we always look at, the career starts, that's a hardy number right there. 37 career starts for a guy that's a true junior. I mean, you rarely see a guy come in, immediately start, and never look back. And that's essentially what Sam Howell did. Took the not only the ACC by storm, but he took the national landscape by storm. Set multiple records, including the most passing touchdowns by a true freshman in NCAA history. The previous mark was set by Trevor Lawrence of 30. Well, he smashed that by 8 total touchdowns in that freshman year. Let's take a look at 2019. And so the 37 starts, that's a good number. That's a really good number for a collegiate quarterback. The 20-17 overall record, not really what you're looking for, but I think some of that is an indictment on his teammates, not as much on Sam Howell. We'll talk about that as we continue to go through this breakdown. But let's go to these numbers. And we start in 2019, his freshman season. We look at the games started, 13. That was the most games he started in his entire career. You look at the attempts. Man came on the campus slinging it. 422 attempts. He never eclipsed the 400 mark again in his career, so they trusted him. He was the sole reason that they even had a chance in that season. They did not have a winning record. They were 5-7 that year. 7-6. They did have a winning record, but he was a guy that was really instrumental in them even having a chance in a lot of those games. As you can see, the completion percentage, not necessarily what you're looking for, but still, as a freshman, to come in, sling it 422 times and still have an over 60 completion percentage, that's big for a true freshman. Over 3,600 yards passing, that was a career high for him. He would not best that number, so that turned out to be the best he had to offer his entire career. The 8.6 yards per attempt, not bad for a freshman, a true freshman at that, not bad at all. And the 38 touchdowns, again, NCAA record for a true freshman, and that turned out to be the best for his career as well. The 7 interceptions, a really good mark there. You're talking about over 5-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio as a true freshman. You don't see that happen very often. You go to 2020, this was the year that if you weren't already on board in his freshman year and you're like, okay, let's see what he does for an encore, he follows up 19 with a banner 2020 season that really put him on the map and had a lot of people talking about Heisman going into the 2021 campaign. But he's 12 starts in 2020. You see the completion percentage go way up to 68.1. Oh, that's where you like to see your collegiate quarterbacks hovering around 70%, 3,500 yards, almost close to 3,600 yards. But look at that yards per attempt. That's the number that to me is eye-popping, because that seems to be a little bit away from the norm of what his career numbers look like. 8.6 in his freshman year, and in his junior season, 8.8. But that number in his sophomore year of 10.3 was staggering, and there were a lot of big plays. He had some big play receivers in Daz Newsome and De'Ami Brown, most notably. You get De'Ami Brown's little brother, Joffrey Brown. They all come in, and they're making these explosive plays, and you could see the benefit of it there in the yards per attempt. 30 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So the touchdown number comes down. The interception number stays exactly the same. So then you get to the 2021 season. All these expectations being placed on Sam Howell. This guy goes into the season as a Heisman Trophy front runner, preseason favorite. And he comes right out of the gate, loses on the road to Virginia Tech. And that was kind of a microcosm of what the season would be for Sam Howell and the North Carolina Tar Heels. It was an up and down season, but he battled. Sam Howell battled. He lost both of his starting running backs from the year previous in Carter and Williams. He lost 2 of his wide receivers in Newsome and De'Ami Brown. And so you could see that there were effects to his game. And there was a lot more of, hey, I need to pull out my do-it-myself kit because I don't have a ton of help, or at least I don't trust a lot of these guys. He also had another guy, Bo Corrales, who was a huge part of that offense in 2020, pretty much out for the whole entire 21 season. So he was missing a lot of stuff. He was missing a lot of weaponry. You don't want to make excuses for quarterbacks, but you can't help but notice how many guys that were there the previous year when he was playing some of his best ball that weren't there any longer. So you see the completion percentage come way back down towards the number where he was at in his freshman year, which you never want to see that kind of regression. You see the yards come way down, the lowest of his career by far. And then you see the yards per attempt come down as well from 10.3 back down to 8.8. The touchdowns, the lowest of his career as well. And the interceptions, the highest of his career. So across the board, it was a really down year for Sam Howell, and it begs the question for a lot of people, what happened in 2021? Where was the Sam Howell that we saw in 19 and 20? And so that's one of the questions that he's going to have to answer throughout this entire process. And this is not uncommon. We've seen guys have to answer this question before. Jordan Love had to answer the question about, hey, what happened to you last year? He had to answer that question when he was selected in that 2020 draft. He had to answer the question, what happened? You were so good in 19. What happened in 2020? And we saw Josh Allen had to answer that question when he came out. Hey, you were excellent in 2017. What happened to you in 2018? So we've seen this before. Or I think with Allen, it was 2017. He was had a down year. 2016, he was excellent. And for Jordan Love, it was 2019 that was a down year. He was excellent in 2018. So there are a lot of extenuating circumstances with these quarterbacks. But Sam Howell, just like a number of other quarterbacks, Malik Willis, Matt Corral, and some of these other guys, Desmond Ridder, his legs are a part of his package. And it really wasn't that way until this past year, as we continue inside the numbers. But now take a look at his rushing statistics. And you look at the first 2 years, and we'll make this quick because all of his damage was essentially done in 1 year, but it lets you know that this guy has the ability. So 19, the guy only had 94 attempts for 35 yards. So we're talking about less than a yard per attempt, obviously. Okay. Only 1 rushing touchdown. Okay. So, and the fumbles, he had 7 of them, lost 2 of them. So he wasn't a runner. You go to 2020 when he was highly successful again, 92 rushes, only 146 yards. At least he got it over a yard per attempt, but 5 touchdowns. So the touchdown number has an uptick there. The fumbles come down, which you love to see. Only lost 1 of the 4 fumbles that he had. So you love to see that. Then 2021 hits. He doesn't trust his receivers. He starts to get a little antsy back there in the pocket, and he starts taking off a ton more. As you can see, look at the attempts. That's the number that should jump out at you first. 182 attempts. Essentially, you are combining the 2 previous years and essentially getting that total in 1 year in 2021 in that final junior season. Then look at the yards. Oh my God, these numbers are robust. 829 yards for Sam Howell in his final season at Chapel Hill. That number is only bested by Malik Willis's 2 years at Liberty. This is insane that you could go from your career high being 146 rushing yards as a quarterback to then 829 in your final year. That just, it doesn't happen very often. Generally, if you're a quarterback that has wheels, we see it throughout your career. We didn't see that with Sam Howell until his final year when it was a necessity. He did this out of necessity. And I think it added a little bit of value, but it also detracted from, what he was able to do as a passer. Clearly, less attempts, less yards, less touchdowns, more rushing attempts, more yards, more rushing touchdowns. So you can see how those are directly affected by one another. The 11 rushing touchdowns, again, another big number there because now he becomes a dual threat in the red zone, a guy that can tuck it and run and hurt you when it counts the most inside the red zone. 8 fumbles, though. With more carries, with more attempts, comes more fumbles. It's just how this usually goes. So the number of fumbles goes up. So does the number of lost fumbles, 4 of them. You'd like to see that number come down significantly, but it's understandable when you see how many times he rushed it and how many yards he had compared to the rest of his career. It's only natural that he would have fumbled the football a little bit more. So those are some gaudy numbers, but they came at the expense of his passing statistics. And so that takes us to his pros because I think he, again, is a very intriguing prospect. So quality arm talent is the first pro. I mean, I think this guy, after Malik Willis, I will go on record to say that he has the second strongest arm in this draft class, if you ask me. I think Sam Howell can sling it with his arm isn't as strong as Malik Willis's, but I think after Willis, I think it's Howell, and then I think it may be Corral. He's got a really good NFL arm. Sneaky athleticism. Look, we didn't really know what kind of an athlete this kid was until his junior season, really. And I think he did a really good job of getting into better shape. I thought he was a little heavy in his freshman and sophomore seasons. I thought he cut a little bit of weight. I think he dropped about 5 to 7 pounds, he looked like. And he was moving a lot better, and you could tell. And it really bared itself out in the numbers that he was able to put up in some of the runs he was able to have. And he's still got a thick frame. He's not the tallest guy in the world, but he's got a thick frame. And you can see it when he runs the football because he's not looking to elude anybody. He's not making anybody miss. But if you come with a sad half of an arm tackle, he's going to run right through that. Toughness. So I think this toughness is twofold. Because one, you see, like I said, when he runs the football and he doesn't slide, a lot of times he's dipping his shoulder, and he's not going to be able to do that at the next level. He's going to learn very quickly. I got to get down, get what I can get down. But he's running through arm tackles. He's a physical runner. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but again, he's got a thick frame. It's stout, so you don't really worry. Similar to Malik Willis, you don't really worry about him getting injured because he's got that thick frame. However, I think it's also a mental toughness too, because a lot was put on the shoulders of Sam Howell going into his junior season. And right out of the gate, there was a rude awakening and a dash and splash of cold water on his face and the rest of his teammates with that loss in Blacksburg to the Virginia Tech Hokies. And it just, that to me was the beginning of what was going to be a rough season for him mentally. And I thought he did his best to battle through everything. And it takes a level of toughness mentally because there was a lot on his shoulders. And I'm going to tell you right now, there were a lot of drops. I mean, you start to lose trust in guys when you repeatedly put the football on the money and guys drop the football. There's no quarterback in this draft class, and every year there's one guy where we say, man, there were a ton of drops on tape. He's that guy in this year's draft class. Like, his completion percentage, I would venture to say, dipped probably a full 2 to 3 percentage points because his guys dropped footballs. I mean, seriously, that 62% we saw in his final year, his junior year, easily could have been 65, 66 if guys just catch the football. I mean, there were so many drops, and it wasn't just his junior year. You got drops in his sophomore year. You got drops against Florida State in 2020 on a big game on the road, and there are drops everywhere, man. So I think mental toughness it comes into play when you keep seeing guys drop the football and you just start thinking to yourself, I got to do this myself, and you can start to press. 3-level accuracy, and he never fell apart, and that's where the mental toughness comes into play. 3-level accuracy, I think. This is a guy that can throw the football accurately at all 3 levels, which is why he set so many records as a freshman, which is why he was going into his junior season a Heisman favorite because of what he did in his sophomore campaign as well. The accuracy, I think, despite the numbers, and I told you that his numbers were grossly affected by the amount of drops by his skill position players. I think that he might be the most accurate guy. When we talk about ball placement, I think Sam Howell might be the most accurate passer in this year's draft class in terms of ball placement. A lot of guys have higher completion percentages than him, but they don't put the football where he's putting the football to give his guys an opportunity to catch and run with the football. So I think his, and we're going to get to what I love about him the most, but his process and progress is outstanding as well. And that comes from the 37 starts. You see this more with guys like Sam Howell and Carson Strong and Kenny Pickett, the guys that have 30 plus starts under their belt. These are the guys that see the field, understand what defenses are trying to do, and know where to go with the football. And you see that with Sam Howell. You see him manipulating the safety, staring down the safety on one side, knowing that he's going to throw the goal ball on the backside so that that safety can't get there in time. He knows he's going to go to that front side, bang 8, but he's staring down the backside so he can get that safety cheating over so he can come back front side to that bang 8. Like, he knows how to manipulate the defense. He knows how to go through his different reads and knows where to go with the football. My favorite trait, though, of Sam Howell is he throws a beautiful deep ball. I don't think there's anyone in this draft class that throws a better deep ball than Sam Howell. There's perfect touch and trajectory and arc on his deep ball. He gives his guys an opportunity to run under the football. It's usually put out in front of them so they can run under it and catch it, not have to wait on it. It's a soft ball. It doesn't come down like a rock. Guys don't have to stop and try to high point it. It's just put out there for a guy to go and get it. And it's a soft, feathery ball that just drops out of the sky. I think he throws a magnificent deep ball. And that is a huge benefit when you're going into the next level, because again, when you get an opportunity to make a big play, you got to take it. And those big balls, those deep balls, they help you a ton. That's why you saw that 10-point, 2 or 3 in that sophomore season, because he throws a beautiful deep ball. Extends plays as a playmaker. He can extend a play as a playmaker. He's looking to make something happen down the field. He's extending plays and kind of doing that backyard football type of thing and trying to make something happen. And a lot of times he's able to extend, and then find someone. Now, will they catch the football is the big question. And there are a number of times where he extend, and then threw it to somebody, and then they didn't catch it. So he's a guy that can extend with his legs, or he can extend as a passer. So he is definitely a guy that is a playmaker as he extends plays. Red zone dual threat, we saw that in his junior season where he rushed for 11 touchdowns. That puts him in the category of a guy that, when all else fails, or you can even call a quarterback draw, you can call read option, and he can pull it, keep it, and get to the end zone, outrun that defensive end or outrun that safety that's coming from the opposite side of the field trying to catch him. He's a guy that can put a little bit of extra pressure on a defense as things get tight down close to the end zone. Collegiate success, you cannot ignore what Sam Howell was able to do in his freshman year, what Sam Howell was able to do in his sophomore season. A lot of people are going to talk about 2021, and rightfully so. It was a huge drop-off in that season. However, he was one of the most decorated quarterbacks in ACC history, definitely the most decorated quarterback in North Carolina history. So what he was able to do, the numbers he was able to put up, 92 passing touchdowns in just 3 years. Are you kidding me? Had he went back to school for his senior year, he'd had well over 100 touchdowns in his career. So what he was able to do was fantastic in a short period of time, and I don't think that can be dismissed. And it's not like the ACC. It's not the ACC of old where it was a highly competitive conference, but you're still dealing with the Clemsons, and Florida State still has talent, and you're dealing with NC State and Virginia Tech, and you're dealing with some teams. Pitt was pretty good during the length of his stay at Chapel Hill. You're dealing with some quality opponents, and he was able to put up some big time numbers. And then finally, experience. Again, you can't buy it. You can't measure experience other than how many games you have as a starter, but that is invaluable. Experience is. And it does nothing but help you in terms of your understanding of defenses and what they're trying to do, and it helps you to speed up your process. So I think that the experience is also huge with those 37 career starts. Now we get to the cons and the things that, if you're on the fence about Sam Howell, will probably push him out of the first round and into the second round for a lot of people out there. So size obviously is a big one. It's the biggest one. I mean, look, he's 6 feet. He's listed as 6'1". He's probably 6 feet and some change. Okay, he's not a big guy, and you can see it on tape. He doesn't look big. He's got a thick frame though, but he doesn't have the height you're looking for, right? So that's the first thing. Can be a bit antsy in the pocket. So I noticed, especially in that junior season, that's part of the reason you saw the 800 and whatever yardage rushing, and the 160 or 40 whatever attempts that he had in that season. That's why you saw the uptick in the amount of attempts and rushes and yards, because I thought he was very antsy in the pocket. He wasn't comfortable. If he didn't like what he saw, he was moving around. He was escaping the pocket, leaving a clean pocket a lot sooner than he needed to. I thought sometimes he ran into duress. I thought there were times where he could have stood in there, and I just think he got uncomfortable way too quickly. When things started to break down, guys started to drop balls, he started to lose trust in some of these targets, or guys weren't winning immediately. I thought he just started to say, you know what, I got it. So I'd like to see him kind of get back. Look, there's a happy medium, I'd like to see him still keep that same athletic prowess that we saw from his junior season, but I'd like him to dial it back a bit and continue to be the guy that was slinging the rock around in his freshman year and into his sophomore year. And I think mentally, he just needs to know that he can trust those around him. He can trust his offensive line. He can trust his receivers and skill guys to come down with the football. So he was a bit antsy, especially in 2021 in the pocket, but did not look comfortable like he did in the previous 2 seasons. Will overextend plays, and any guy that's a playmaker that can extend plays a lot of times runs into this problem. They don't know when to say when. I think the greatest example of Sam Howell not knowing when to say when was the game-clinching pick he threw against Virginia Tech in the first game, the season opener in 2021. He's getting swung around. He's almost in the grasp. And a last-ditch effort to try to throw the football away, save about maybe 8-9 yards on the play. I don't know what the timeout situation was, or whatever the case may be, but he tries to throw the football out of bounds. He ends up throwing it right to a Virginia Tech defender, and that's the end of the ball game. And that's one of those situations where you would much rather him just eat that. If you can't get it out of bounds safe and securely, then just eat it, And again, time was a factor, but you much rather have time ticking than not have the football at all and the game be over. So you can see that with him at times. He'll overextend a play, run into a sack after breaking 2 tackles. These are the things you run into with guys that are playmakers that are always looking to make something happen. Played in an RPO heavy offense. Look, I don't really need to we could say that about just about every quarterback prospect that comes into the league at this point. So I don't really want to belabor that point. He played, there was a lot of gun there too. It wasn't all heavy. Like some of these guys is strictly every single snap. They're sticking it in the belly of the running back and then making a decision. Like Matt Corral, for instance, essentially every single play is him sticking the ball in the belly of the running back at some point, whether it's actually a handoff, it's play action fake and he's turning his back, or it's RPO, And so that's not the case with Sam Howell. Although he played in an RPO heavy offense, there was a lot of gun. There was a lot of him just spreading out the defense, surveying the field and seeing who to get the football to. But look, And he got under center a little bit too, more so than some of these other quarterbacks. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. That's not something that we need to really beat. That horse has long been dead. 2021 decline is something that everyone's going to want to talk about. And I get it. We understand. We know how this works. He's not the first and he won't be the last quarterback that in his final season, had some extenuating circumstances that really affected him. In certain instances, you have a brand new offensive coordinator or a new head coach. Your guy goes and leaves and you can't leave. And so you get a whole new cast of characters in there. Most often, though, times when we talk about quarterback struggling, it's usually because there's a new cast of characters around him, supporting cast members. They lose one or two receivers, they lose their favorite tight end, or they lose their running backs. In the case of Sam Howell, he had pretty much a brand new cast from top to bottom. He lost both of his top two wide receivers. He lost a third receiver in Bo Corrales, who was out with an injury. The other two were drafted into the NFL, and Daz Newsome and De'Ami Brown. He lost both of his top two running backs, who were a huge part of his success the previous 2 years, and Michael Carter and Javonte Williams. And so he was struggling. He was looking for someone to step up, and there were a couple of guys that stepped up and made some plays for him, but including Downs. But it was rough, and I think it really did impact him in 2021. And I did think he was a bit antsy, and I did think that he was a little bit prone to try to do it himself, and that led to some mistakes when he was pressing a little bit. But I don't think that takes away from what he could be at the next level. Again, if he gets in the right system, I think Sam Howell has a chance to be a really good quarterback in this league. So that takes us to our player comp, and everybody knows what this is. Hell, he even looks like the guy we're comping him to. And of course, it's Baker Mayfield. I mean, look at the helmets. Look inside the helmets. Don't tell me that if I took Sam Howell and put him in a Cleveland Browns uniform, you wouldn't think that was Baker Mayfield. They even look the same. Their body type is exactly the same. They're the same height pretty much. They're the same weight. They have that same thick, chubby type frame. They're the same type of athlete. Baker Mayfield doesn't wow you with his athleticism, but if you give him some space and an opportunity, he'll take off and run. They've got the same type of arm. They can get the football anywhere it needs to go. They are the same quarterback. You're staring into literally a carbon copy of the guy. And this is why everybody's going with this comp, and it just, to me, makes way too much sense to pass it by. The first guy I thought about when I saw him was like, this is a clone of Baker Mayfield. And, and I think his career track is kind of trending in the way that Baker Mayfield's is going right now, where there's one really good year, then there's a bad year. There's one really good year, then there's a down year. And the Browns don't know what the hell to do with Baker Mayfield right now. And that's kind of what Sam Howell's college career looks like. It started out like gangbusters with a bang, and then he ended with this season that kind of left you wanting more, like, hey, you left a lot to be desired there. You sure you don't want to come back to school for one more year? And he's like, nah, I'm good. Now, this is it. I don't want to do this again. And so you're not quite sure. I'm telling you, Sam Howell's the wild card. He's not going to do what Baker Mayfield did in the 2018 draft and ascend all the way to the #1 pick. But just like Baker Mayfield, if he gets in the right system, on the right team, with the right supporting cast, I think Sam Howell could actually be a really good starter for someone in the National Football League. So that's going to do it for Sam Howell in this Draft Prospects 101 series breakdown. There's more where that came from. We're going to switch gears and go to a different position. I think we're going to go to edge rusher. It's a really deep draft class of edge rushers, and I'm dying to take a look at these guys. So I think that's where we're going to venture next. But in any event, if you enjoy this content, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button for more of it. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of it, and hit the like button as it helps this channel grow exponentially. Until next time, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off, telling you thank you, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.
Louie.